Yeah, well, I know we own now because you didn't, but you didn't tell us. I was talking about him texting me, telling me that we are on now. I mean, I know we own. How come you didn't answer your phone when I was calling you to find out why y'all kept playing that intro over and over and over? So, I'm going to let the people hear it. Yes, what is it? May wa alaikum ala salam.
Yes, sir. I mean, I had unmuted my phone. I guess brother didn't see me, so I wasn't just going to keep it unmuted. I got you on my phone. I had you on right after you graded. So for some reason,
no, but
phone number was
why was that? That's not what.
On the station.
But that's not what I was calling.
So I just connected you myself.
That's not what I was calling about. I know y'all heard the intro kept on playing. Somebody could have just stopped it.
Yes, sir, but we would have stopped it. We didn't know you were on the phone because your phone number wasn't showing up.
Well, if you was listening to me, you know I heard it, and you all heard it. So when it's like that, don't let it just keep playing. Stop it. I'm not late for my meetings. If I'm going to be late, I would call you and let you know that I'm going to be late. When that intro get through playing, I'm going to be there. If Allah let me live. Yeah, I hung up because it kept on playing over and over and over. So, but anyway, we on now. So I'll let that do. Okay. So I want everybody to it's very important that you understand why Allah told us to honor our father and mother. It starts, let me explain something to you. Go to the 13th chapter of Matthew. And in the 13th chapter of Matthew and the, excuse me, this is the, let's see. I want to make it plain to you these things. The 44th verse. Jesus gave us a parable. I think that it is time that, well, you remember now, in the 16th chapter of John, Jesus said this. In the 16th chapter of John, in the 12th verse, it says, I'm start reading there. And you listen to what Jesus said was going to happen. I have yet many things to say unto you, but you cannot bear them now. Now, if you recall, you go over in Corinthians, the 15th chapter, it says that as we have borne the image of the earthy, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly. Well, now you understand when Jesus said you cannot bear the things that he had to say at this time. You can't carry that. You can't receive that. Because what? It wasn't time. Huh? Okay, he said, I have yet many things to say unto you, but you cannot bear. It is not time for you to bear this now. Huh? Howbeit, when he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he that is the mind that is produced from all truths, natural and spiritual, when he is come, he will guide you into the understanding of all truth. Do you understand? Then it says, for he shall not speak of himself. You won't be able to accuse that one of making up something, because he will show you where he got it from. Do you understand? And you will have to bear him witness. You know how you bear me witness? By your, I can talk for hours and hours and hours and nobody ever say nothing. You know why? Because they can't accuse me of making it up. The only thing they can say is, I guided them to where it was hidden at. Huh? Okay, it says, for he shall not speak of, you've told people, speak up, I can't hear you. If you didn't hear them, you wouldn't have told them to speak up. Then, were you lying when you said that you couldn't hear them? Not really. Because when you said you couldn't hear them, what you meant was you couldn't understand them. I didn't hear you. Well, okay. Whatsoever he shall hear, that shall he speak. Whatsoever he shall understand, that shall he speak. Huh? That's why Allah told me, he said, Son of man, hear what I say unto thee. Be thou not rebellious like that rebellious house, but open your mouth, recite my words. Open thy mouth and eat that which I give unto thee, which he give me knowledge of. That's what he gave me. He sent a hand to me with a book in it. That was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So it says, whatsoever he shall hear, that shall he speak, and he will show you things to come. He will show you things that are prophesied to come to pass. Do you understand? Just what I'm doing now. I'm showing you that this was all prophesied. Even me standing up here teaching you this. It's all written that I would do it. You understand? Okay. Then it says, he shall glorify me. Meaning, where people didn't see the true brilliance of Jesus because they didn't understand what he was teaching. But now, I'm glorifying him. You notice, glory. The Corinthians again. In 1 Corinthians, that same chapter, chapter 15, and around the, let's see here. I like to give you these things so that you don't think that we just snatching something out the air. I'm not. Let's see here. This is the 15th chapter, and I'm going to start at the 39th verse. It says, all flesh is not the same flesh, but there is one kind of flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, another of fishes, and another of birds. There are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial. But the glory of the celestial is one, and the glory of the terrestrial is another. There is one glory of the sun, and another glory of the moon, and another glory of the stars. For one star even differeth from another star in glory. Now there you got the definition of glory. One star differs from another star in its brightness and even in the type of light that it emits. Do you understand? Okay. So now I am glorifying Jesus. I'm bringing out the light that was hidden in his dark saying, in his mysterious saying. I have shown you the light that was hidden in there. So I'm glorifying him. Do you understand? And that's what he said I would do. He said, for he shall glorify me, for he shall receive of mine. That's what the ears do. That's all they do, is receive sound. So as I'm reciting Jesus' words, I'm receiving them. I'm receiving his teachings, and then I'm showing you the understanding of it. That's why Jesus said in the hereafter, he said, hereafter you shall see the Holy Scriptures opened, you shall see heaven open, and the angels, messengers of God, ascending. For that's what all of their, what does a staircase do? It is built for ascension. Is that right? And descension. Is that right? To ascend and descend upon it. So, hereafter you shall see heaven open, the Holy Scriptures, the understanding of them open, and the angels, messengers of God, ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. Huh? Is that happening or what? It's happening right now. Okay, then it says, he shall receive of this, the 14th verse of the 16th chapter of John. He shall receive of mine and shall show it unto you. He'll show you the understanding of it. That's what I'm doing now, right? All things that the Father hath are mine. There you go. Now he's calling me the Father. It says, all things that the Father hath are mine. Therefore said I, that he shall take of mine and shall show it unto you. And so now it says, a little while, and you shall not see me. And again, a little while, and you shall see me. A little while, and you shall not understand me. A little while, and you shall understand me. Huh? That's what happens every time I start reading. For a little while, you don't understand. You don't see what he's talking about. And then for a little while later, you understand it. Is that right? Why? Because I go to the Father. Is that right? Because he ascends before his word can descend. Do you understand? Okay. Now let's go back to Matthew. And I started at that. I'm going to start at the 44th verse. It says, again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto treasure hid in a field, which when a man hath found it, he hideth, and for joy thereof goeth and selleth all that he hath, and buyeth that field. When you sell something, what do you do? What actually happens when you sell it?
You exchange one thing for something else.
You give it up. You give it up for a price. Is that right? What is the price of truth? What do you have to be willing to give up?
Whatever you understand.
No. That's not the price of truth.
Pay attention.
No. The price of truth is you got to be willing to give up falsehood. If you're not willing to give up falsehood, you can't receive the truth. Because the truth contradicts and demands that you give up falsehood. Now let us get to this. It says again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto treasure hidden in a field. What do you go to colleges and universities for?
To learn a field of study.
You go to college and university for different fields of endeavor. Is that right? I mean, the field of medicine, and then there are fields within that field. Isn't that right? And when you first get there, it's hidden from you. The treasure of it, the knowledge of it, is hidden in that field. But it says, which when a man have found it, he hideth it. But thy words have I hidden in my heart, that I might not sin against thee. Remember David said that? Let's find it. Find it. So read it. I want your sight to be clear today. I want you to know that I'm the Lord and that you turned me down. I want you to know why you are lost. Psalms chapter what? 119. Chapter 119 of the book of Psalms. It says, in chapter 119, what verse? Right up there at the beginning of it. Yes, I like that. All praises due to Allah. In the 11th verse, it says, thy word have I hidden in my heart. When he find it, he hideth it. Huh? Yeah. What did Jesus say? Sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth. Huh? Okay. The kingdom of heaven. Go back over there where Jesus was talking. That 44th verse, we still on it. Still harping on it. They was harping with their harps. I didn't hear you. It says, and again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto treasure, a treasure trove of knowledge, hidden in a field. Huh? Just like electronics is a treasure of knowledge, just like medicine, the school of medicine, the school of aviation, the school of architecture. The kingdom of heaven is like unto those treasures that's hidden in a particular field called religion. Huh? Says, which when a man have found it, seek and what? What did you go to college for? Seeking what? An education in a particular field. And you found it, didn't you? Yeah. Which when he find it, he hideth it. You paid attention in class. You accepted what the instructors was offering you, didn't you? When he find it, he hideth, and for joy thereof he goeth and selleth. When you sell something, you give it out. He manifested in his life he starts selling it, giving it out, even advertising it. You need a carpenter, call me. You need this, call me. If you need that, call me. Is that right? You need a doctor? Here you go. Huh? He's selling it. Is that right? He says, for joy thereof, he said, when he have found it, he hide it, and for joy thereof, he goeth and selleth all that he hath, and buyeth that field. That's why they call, for instance, most people don't really understand. Doctors are more honest about it. They call theirs a practice. Do you understand? They are carrying the knowledge that they received from that treasure of knowledge in the universities and in the med school. They carrying that into practice. Huh? But that's what all schools do. They just don't say it like that. When you come out of engineering, whether it's electrical or whether it's architectural or whatever engineering you come out with, you carry that out into practice. To practice, and what happens? The more you practice it, the more of it you gain. The more understanding of it you gain. Isn't that right? Yeah. So he goeth and selleth it, he practices it, that he hath, and buyeth, meaning learns more about that field. A lot of stuff they tell you in school, when you get out there and practice it, you realize that it's a difference in knowing the path, the way to go, and walking it. Do you understand? That's what Morpheus told Neo. There's a difference in knowing the path and doing the path. Doing what he say. There's a whole lot of people know what he say. They just ain't strong enough to do it. They don't have the will to carry it into deeds and actions. They know it. Well, they can tell you all about love your neighbor, but how many of them really do that? Do you understand? So all praises due to Allah. So now, I want to share something with you. But first, I want to share something else with you. Because I was looking at this hearing. And I was so impressed with one of the elders, senators, because you could see his commitment to what he claimed to believe in. And I want you to remember, this is one of the reasons why you were told to honor your father and your mother. Now, listen to this. Watch this.
I'm angry because it said Joe Biden won.
The House of the...
It had his name prepared to be scanned into that. Mr. Sterling, despite the efforts,
very powerful and very expensive.
Acting Deputy Attorney General Richard Donahue,
You have the most important job.
do whatever you can.
That's over.
There were no additional ballots allegation. The tweet read, quote, President Trump after the election.
Is it 1:30?
Votes in 2020. And they also counted ballots in 2016.
You swear on authority.
No, that's not the one I'm looking for.
Contributor as well, and
asked the governor about this a moment ago, Governor Fuller, that there does remain, Representative Ron Johnson, who wanted to set those fake electors for Wisconsin.
And we will turn our attention to next. Many witnesses have told the select
I think the Constitution.
There it is.
Who serviced the state of Arizona today.
Senator Johnson wished to hand deliver to the Vice President the fake electors
Was told that these would
in his capacity as President.
Has received 306.
I thought of the book, The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight, and I just thought, this is
Just a moment. I want to get into his whole thing. I thought I had recorded it, but you all give me a minute here. You know, there's no such thing as a patriot that does not believe in God. No such thing. You cannot be a patriot and disavow a belief in God. Because patriotism requires that your word be your bond. Do you understand? So I'm going to show you now. I was about riveted to my seat while he was giving his testimony, because it was amazing to me. It reminded me of what Nathaniel and think Jesus and them said about each other. Can any good thing come out of there? I said, boy, is there something here? You know, they don't like to, usually you can just put something in there and they'll bring up that particular one. They don't want you to hardly see that one. Because the man was so concise and honest in his testimony. Yeah. I mean the eldest man from Arizona. What do you mean? You don't know what I'm talking about? Huh? Was that his name? Bowers? I thought it was Senator Russell. Okay. No wonder it ain't coming up. B-O-W-E-R-E. Is it B-O-Y-E-R? Oh. B-O-W-E-R-S. Yes. Yeah. I mean, he's the Speaker of the House in Arizona. Let me see here. His face still ain't coming up here. Sir? Here he is. Let me see. That ain't long enough. I want them. They don't even want to give you the whole thing. But he definitely was one who when he was speaking, you could tell it wasn't no act. I love sincerity in people. Even if they're wrong, if they're sincere, you can reason with them because they truly believe they're right. But people who, just like them people that was, till my day, thought the election was fraudulent and whatnot, what you need a mask on for if you thought something wrong had gone on and you thought you was right? You don't have to hide behind no mask. You a crook. Why dress up like a robber if you ain't one? Sir? Okay, PBS, just a moment. We'll get to it. PBS, wait a minute. What? Okay. Day 4. Let's see. Now which? Okay. Okay. Just a moment. I don't want to watch live. January 6th committee hearing, day 4. Okay. Let's see here. And what point?
1 hour, 25 minutes. But there was no evidence.
You said 1 hour and 25 minutes? Yes. All right. Well, technology is a wonderful thing, isn't it? Man, I'm telling you. All right. Let's see.
The system held, but barely. And the system held because people of courage, Republicans and Democrats, like the witnesses you will hear today, put their oath to the country and Constitution above any other consideration. They did their jobs, as we must do ours. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
I now welcome our first panel of witnesses. We're joined today by a distinguished legislator from Arizona, Rusty Bowers, who's a Republican Speaker of the Arizona House of Representatives. Mr. Bauer was first elected to the state legislature in 1993 and has served as Speaker since 2019. Welcome, Speaker Bowers. Brad Raffensperger is the 29th Secretary of State of Georgia, serving in this role since 2019. As an elected official and a Republican, Secretary Raffensperger is responsible for supervising elections in Georgia and maintaining the state's public records.
Now, oftentimes people think that I'm saying something that is not based in the Word of God, simply because I don't tell you how I arrived at it. That's why I always try to tell you how I arrived at something. A little while ago, I told you that there's no such thing as a patriot who does not believe in God. Patriotism simply defined is a love for one's country. So much so that you would, if necessary, lay your life down to protect it. Do you understand? Since God is the author of love, how can you have love for your country unless God put it in you? And God don't force himself nowhere. You have to. You notice Ben Franklin and George Washington and all of them, they openly profess their belief in God. This country is a country that you may not like to acknowledge it, but every time you spend a dollar bill, you look on it, you can't help but see "In God We Trust" on the back of the money. What do you think that was just accidentally put there? No, you have become a habitation of devils. Notice the words. Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils. It wasn't always that, but it has become that. I didn't hear you. You bringing judgment on yourself. I'm just trying to wake you up, man. Do you suppose that man got to be head of the Republican House, or the Speaker of the House of Republicans in Arizona by being a Republican in name only? Is that how he got there? If more of them who just walked out of the party had stayed in there with him, your country wouldn't be in the shape it's in now. So that man took his oath of office seriously. Do you understand? You don't resign when unless the House just done, it gets so far gone, then it's abandoned ship. Do you understand? But I told you I'm with you. You got something here worth fighting for. Why would you let a bunch of sycophants frighten you out of your country? A bunch of sycophants with rocks in their pockets, and that's all I consider bullets to be, rocks in their pocket. If God is on your side, them weapons ain't gonna help them people against you. Allah will make them turn them guns on themselves and on one another. But you got to stand, man. He said something that made so much sense. If the God who guided me to this path, if he was gracious enough to guide me to this path, shall I then show myself too cowardly to walk in it? Man, I admire that man. He wasn't speaking from trying to show off. He was speaking from his heart. Now that's a Muslim. I don't care what you call it. You call it. That man submitting to the godly fear that's in him. Do you understand? The word of God that he gave his allegiance to. And he was right when he said the Constitution is divinely inspired. If you had taken the time to read its wording and read the Holy Bible and things, you would know that document ain't far from what the Bible says. Persons shall not have their property or their persons unlawfully seized and that kind of thing. You defend the poor. Don't take misadvantage of them. What's on the side of the police cars? To protect and to what? Let him that is greatest in power among you be the servant and protector of all. You were given that authority, then use it to protect and serve those who entrusted you with that authority. You bunch of hypocrites, liars, taken an oath that you could give less than a tinker's damn about living up to. This man should not have been a surprise, but you have such, your republic has become governed by infidels, that when they see a man that is faithful to his word and faithful to God and faithful to his country, they make it a big deal. Ain't that something? Just like you hear sometimes in the movies or whatnot, Marines saying simplify. And you know, I bet most of them don't realize. I mean, I was taught the meaning of it. It means always faithful. Semper fidelis. And I don't know what the whole word of semper is. I know it's probably some more added to that. But I knew that the meaning of it, they taught us it meant always faithful. Someone that is faithful is someone who is trustworthy. That's not going to stab you in your back. Grinning up in your face, pretending. They pretend that they believe in the Constitution. Lying. Now, I tell you what, if I can't prove that they don't believe in it, I owe them $50,000. Why don't they come in here and argue with me and tell me that they believe in the Constitution? Then I could ask them one question and shut them up. Show me in the Constitution where it said that it protects your right to overthrow the government. To even attempt to overthrow the government by bloodshed and violence. What part of the Constitution says that? That the people have a duty to rise up in violence against the government if something happened in there that they don't agree with. Where's that amendment at? Show it to me. That's why the vote is so powerful. Because if you don't like what somebody's doing, they won't be doing it long. All you got to do is vote them out of office. And if they if they violate the Constitution, if you really mean it when you say you're a nation of laws and not of men, all these people been violating their oath of office, and you just letting them stay in there? Well, what's wrong with you? I'm scared. A coward cannot defend the Constitution. The Constitution is a document that you have to have in your heart so that you don't sin against it. Do you understand that you don't violate it? And you don't stand by idly watching others violate it. You damn coward. But anyway, well, I wouldn't let nobody stand up and call me a coward. When it comes to the Word of God that I claim to believe in, you let some of them say I just went along with them lying, saying the Bible meant this and the Quran meant that, and I didn't say nothing. Well, how in the world my life and my death all for Allah if I'm going to stand by and watch people misrepresent Allah's word? The Holy Quran says, who is more unjust than he who forges a lie and signs Allah's name to it? Huh? We take truth, not a gun and blow his brains out, not a knife and chop his head off. No, we take truth and we hurl it against falsehood. Falsehood is just another way of saying forgeries of lies against Allah's word, against the truth. When you give misunderstanding, here's a forgery. 2 times 2 is 5. That's a forgery. Huh? That's a falsehood. Because it's saying that 2 times 2 is something that 2 times 2 really is not. Do you understand? And if I say it knowingly to you and just know I'm telling you other than I'm lying to you. You understand? I look out the window. It's daylight outside. How are you looking out there and calling that daylight? The next question from you is, are you blind? do you understand? But anyway, but I wanted this man's testimony to be heard. But I think before we hear his testimony,
Mr. Secretary,
just a moment.
Gabriel Sterling is the Chief Operating Officer in the Georgia Secretary of State's office. Mr. Sterling was the statewide voting systems implementation man.
I'm going to let that get to Mr. Bowers in a minute. But I need to read this to you. Now, this is from George Washington's farewell address to the Union. He said, and I'm on page 6 out of 14 pages. And it says, I'm at the bottom paragraph, starting at the bottom of page 6, on my printout. Now, you'll have to find it on your printout if you got one. But it says, towards the preservation of your government and the permanency of your present happy state, it is requisite, just a moment, it is requisite, it is a requirement, not only that you steadily discountenance, meaning don't uplift this and don't always look upon it with a stern. You know how you see your children doing something that they ain't got no business, and you may be out there looking, and you just give them one of them stern looks, and they know that they better be careful. Huh? Discountenance irregular oppositions to its acknowledged authority. What is that? The Constitution is an acknowledged authority. And you have to be careful about oppositions. You know, you should always discountenance. You should always look with an unacceptable eye upon people suggesting corrupting the Constitution. Because the minute you corrupt it, you are actually secretly an enemy to it. You know how you prevent yourself from becoming the enemy to the Constitution? Read the preamble. when you read the preamble, it tells you what the purpose of everything in the document is. And it says it in concise language. In order to form a more perfect union, to establish justice, to promote domestic peace. How is putting guns in the hands of all of the citizens promoting peace? Open carry laws that you can just carry. You understand something? If the founding fathers meant for people to just walk around carrying guns, they would never have needed armories. They didn't need to build no armories. Just let everybody keep the weapons in the house, in the garage. Just have them laying around. Don't even build a military base. Just have everybody on standby. Minutemen. I didn't hear you. You see how they have corrupted the meaning of the Constitution? Because they have gone in the way of who? What did Cain want to do? He wanted to murder his brother because he was jealous of his brother. The redneck is jealous of the intelligent white man because he know he can't compete with him, and he wants that intelligent white man's place. But if he gave him the white man's place, he do just what he just did. What Donald Trump just did? He took the oath of office to uphold and defend the Constitution, and he's been trying to do away with it ever since it's been in there. And all of them who knew that they didn't stand a chance to be president, Donald Trump gave them hope. Because if he could be president, anybody could be president. That was their thing. Do you hear me? Now, because you didn't exercise an ounce of prevention, you need 10 pounds of cure now. This January 6th committee got the ball rolling. The Justice Department now has to make an example that these people will never forget. That's what needs to happen now. But anyway, let me finish reading what George Washington said. He says, but also that you should resist with care the spirit of innovation upon its principles, however specious the pretext. You know how people, you remember what the emperor told them when they made him emperor, and I love democracy. you remember how he put it. But once he got in there, he never gave it up, did he? There you go. He says, one method of assault may be to effect in the forms of the Constitution alterations which will impair the energy of the system. That's what that altering what the Second Amendment means. You know how you alter? It's like people who took smite the neck, smite above the necks. They took that in the Holy Quran to mean chop people's head off. Well, if you chop his head off, you're killing him. Allah didn't say kill him. He said smite the necks. What is the neck? The neck is the foundation upon which the head sits. What is the foundation upon which the heads of state sit? It is laws, just and unjust. if you smite the unjust, if you take truth and hurl it against the unjust position that a head of state or a leader takes, then you are soon, that leader will not be able to, that head will be decapitated from that body of people. Do you understand? This is what, that's one of the reasons why they didn't want no investigation in the January 6th attempted overthrow. Because you're going to find out, as you are finding out, just how many of them were involved in that unlawful act. And they don't want you to know what they was doing. Do you understand? So, you take truth. The Holy Quran says, nay, we take truth and hurl it against falsehood, and knocks out its brains, and lo, it vanishes. And woe to them, woe to you for what you describe as holy war. There's nothing holy about murdering people. If Prophet Muhammad thought he was fighting a holy war, he would have just kept on killing everybody that disagreed with him and made war against him. But he stopped the killing when he got back to Mecca with a conquering army. And he figured out a way to get them to stop willingly. And to give those who were infidels a way to lie their way out of being killed. No messenger of God wants to murder his people. But anyway, I mean, I'm not going to stop every time. And I mean, George Washington had he had a command of language, man. But anyway, all of them did. Ben Franklin, all of them, man. But anyway, it says, a method, let me just keep reading. One method of assault. You notice, assault is that's just what it is, aggression. Attempting overthrow, attempting to do harm to. One method of assault may be to effect in the forms of the Constitution alterations which will impair, which will cripple the energy of the system, and thus to undermine what cannot be directly overthrown. So they couldn't overthrow the Second Amendment, so they redefined what it means. Do you understand? Because the Second Amendment plainly says in its preface that a well-regulated militia, is a government-controlled militia. Do you understand? That's what the Army is. That's what the Navy is. That's what the Air Force and the Marine Corps and the National Guard. They are well regulated. You cannot even be a member of that militia and be absent without some having gotten permission to be absent. Do you understand? If you are absent when roll call come around and you ain't out there, you are what is called AWOL. Absent without authorized leave. Do you understand? And so, I'm glad I went into the military and learned all of these things. I didn't realize how much it was going to help me later explain to you about these liars calling themselves militias. They ain't nothing but gangs. Gangs and mobs. They ain't got no regulation. The military is regulated by the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Them niggas that's walking around there with I said niggas because that's all they are. A bunch of cowardly, a stingy, hateful, jealous people. Too lazy to go and get up and go to work, so they want to blame somebody else because they white and ain't got nothing. Grew up in a country where your skin, your white skin, could have opened every door that was in the country for progress. What you doing, Pope? Your own people named you. Poor white trash. And I remember the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's last words to us. He said, I say to you that the black man of North America have nobody to blame but himself. If he will get up and respect himself and do something for himself, his once slave master will come and respect him and help him to do for self. He said, why you want to lay around his door, give me. He said, give you nothing. You can give yourself something now. What are he going to give you after he gave you the freedom to go get for yourself? You don't need to blame them now. He said, blame yourself. Huh? Ain't no white people come out here and tell me what we can't build and you can't do this and you can't do that. They leave us alone. So if we ain't got nothing, whose fault is it? And those who trying to do something to block us, Allah dealing with them. And I'm going to tell you this. That white man that I let out of hell, he the first and last one I'm letting out of hell. You come in here talking crazy to me, if I throw you in hell, you can beg and scream and cry all you want. I will not let you out. Now you just remember that. So, yes. Turn what mic off? Well, that's the one I'm talking to. I ain't even had this other one on. Just a moment. Now I'll turn it off. Okay. That better? Okay. So, George Washington went on to say, he says, in all the changes to which you may be invited, remember that time and habit are at least as necessary to fix the true character of governments as of other human institutions. You know, before you say something don't work, this is like medicine. When you first take medicine, the doctor, he don't tell you come back the next day and tell him how you feel. He said, I want you to go away, take this for a while, take it every day until it's gone, and then I want to see you again. Do you understand? Because you got to give it time. The medicine got to have time to get inside of you and do what it's supposed to do. Isn't that right? Okay, so that's what George Washington was telling them. You got to be patient. You can't just because something don't seem to solve the problem immediately, that don't mean it ain't no good. Huh? But it says, I'll read that part again. It says, in all the changes to which you may be invited, remember that time and habit are at least as necessary to fix the true character of governments as of other human institutions. It says that experience is the surest standard. That experience is the surest standard by which to test the real tendency of the existing constitution of a country. Now, You look how long the Constitution of the United States been enacted and has for the most part worked for its citizens. Why would you not protect it and defend it? But he also says that facility in changes upon the credit of mere hypothesis and opinion exposes to perpetual change from the endless variety of hypothesis and opinion. The minute you just have somebody got had themselves a wet dream or something that they want to, we ought to do this, or we ought to do that, and you start changing your constitution based on somebody's belief, you just about to lose your constitution. You understand? Because once you open that door, it ain't gonna shut no more. Just like you put a man that you knew was not qualified for president in the office of president, and now look what you got. You got people in the office of governor that ain't got no business in there. You got people for offices, running for office that never would have ran for office if you hadn't opened that door. Now everybody and his stupid brother-in-law would think he can be president of the United States. I didn't hear you. Okay. It says, and remember, especially that for the efficient management of your common interests in a country so extensive as ours, a government of as much vigor as is consistent with the perfect security of liberty, the perfect protection of freedom, is indispensable. Liberty itself will find in such a government, with powers properly distributed and adjusted, its surest guardian, which is its patriots. That's what endears a country to its citizens, is the amount of freedom that they experience in that country. Then it says, it is indeed little else than a name where the government is too feeble to withstand the enterprises of faction. You know, you remember I told you the greatest defense that you have, that you can give to your people, is an enlightened mind. An enlightened mind, I'm proving this to you every time I stand up here. I can withstand disagreement. I can withstand people who would otherwise mislead people. I can let them come in here and talk and show people that you don't want to go that way. I mean, really. That's the government that's upon my shoulder. That's what George Washington is talking about. He said a government, it said, indeed, little else than a name where it is indeed little else than a name where the government is too feeble, too weak-minded to withstand the enterprises of faction, to confine, little gangs, little groups, to confine each member of the society within the limits prescribed by the laws. You let people, it's just like I tell my followers, I don't care about you questioning me or disagreeing with something that you may tell me that what I'm telling you to do may not be the best way. Well, then I'll say, well, what do you think? But when you start telling me that after I done made a decision, you ain't going to do what I say, you can't, no. That don't go. I will remind you that Allah said we sent no messenger but that he should be obeyed. Huh? You lost the right to tell me you're not going to obey me when you said you were my follower. So, as long as you're my follower, you're going to obey me. It says, to confine each member, that's what the government has to be able and strong enough to do. Confine each member of the society within the limits prescribed by the laws. And to maintain all in the secure and peaceful enjoyment of the rights of person and property. Huh? I have already intimated to you the danger of parties in the state, with particular reference to the founding of them on geographical discriminations. Let me now take a more comprehensive view and warn you in the most solemn manner, not a joking manner, but in the most solemn, serious manner, against the baneful effects of the spirit of party in general. This spirit, unfortunately, is inseparable from our nature. Why? Man is a social creature. Do you understand? So, birds of a feather, they flock together, and people that are alike, they gravitate toward each other. You understand? And so he says, having its root in the strongest passions of the human mind. It exists as partisanship. It exists under different shapes in all governments, more or less stifled, controlled, or repressed. But in those of the popular form, those of democratic societies, those of the popular form, it is seen in its greatest rankness. Rankness is just another word of saying ugliness. And is truly their worst enemy. Why? What is a party? What are parties? They are that which can cause a united house to become a divided house. Parties. Do you understand? And so they are the worst enemy to a unity. You have to be very watchful. That's why it's so important that you seek first godly love, godly thought, godly guidance, and recognize that regardless to whether you was a Democrat or a Republican, you were first, as you say, an American. That you are a citizen of the United States. And when you become senators or Congress representatives, you are a citizen first and a representative of other citizens secondly. Do you understand? And the Constitution is what you swore to uphold, not a party. Do you understand? And as long as you don't get your allegiances mixed up, and they gave you a way to not get your allegiances mixed up. From the time you was in elementary school, from the time you first started school, you said, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, not for Democrats, not for Republicans, but for all. And the flag of the United States represents all 50 states and all of the people in those states. Do you understand? And the Constitution protects all equally. That's the ideal. And the ideals of the nation is supposed to be championed most by those who govern. But anyway, as it says, the alternate domination of one faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge, natural to party dissension. You done seen a lot of that already. Well, when we get the majority again, we gonna fix you. Is that what they say? George Washington warned them about that. Of course, they don't honor George Washington no more. I didn't hear you. Okay. He says, the alternate domination of one faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge, natural to party dissension, which in different ages and countries has perpetrated the most horrid enormities, meaning the most horrid crimes against humanity. Do you understand? Then it says, is itself a frightful despotism, is a frightful tyranny. Despotism is just another word for tyranny. But this leads at length to a more formal and permanent tyranny. You just saw what he tried to put people in positions to protect his wrongdoing. And it says, the disorders and miseries which result gradually incline the minds of men to seek security and repose in the absolute power of an individual. And sooner or later, the chief of some prevailing faction, more able or more fortunate than his competitors, turns this disposition, this frame of mind, to the purpose of his own elevation on the ruins of public freedom. After he done destroyed the public's freedom. You notice, anytime somebody disagreed with Donald Trump, he told him, get him out of here. Get him out of here. And he wasn't even president at the time. He was just running for president. He didn't want nobody in his what they call rallies. It remind you of high school, didn't it? You be sitting up in the stands and the visiting team come there, and somebody heckle your team, and a fight break out. Well, you expect that from an immature mind, but you don't put an immature mind in the office of president. At least you used to, didn't. But now you don't care, because you about to leave here. Anyway, without looking forward to an extremity of this kind, which nevertheless ought not to be entirely out of sight. He says, the common and continual mischiefs of the spirit of party, low key. You remember that just under the surface, racism has always been there. Huh? But they stayed low key about it. And that's why I call it little mischief maker low key. Do you understand? But anyway, he says, it says, without looking forward to an extremity of this kind, which nevertheless ought not to be entirely out of sight, the common and continual mischiefs of the spirit of party are sufficient to make it the interest and duty of a wise people. Well, you used to be a wise people. To discourage and restrain it. Look what John McCain was an example of that. John McCain, he was a Republican, but he was an American first. He was a citizen of the United States. And he saw that this country was not two countries, even though it's a two-party system. Liberal and conservative. And they've always found a way to, liberal means to move ahead. Conservative means to go slow. When you put the two ahead, then you move ahead, but do it slowly. Do you understand? So that everyone can keep up. Huh? But anyway, so it says, it serves always to distract the public counsels of the, this is what parties do. It serves always, not sometimes, but always, to distract the public counsels and enfeeble the public administration. You talking to them Democrats? You talking to them Republicans? I don't want nothing to do with you. Well, that's the first step to the breakup of a home, when the couple stops speaking to one another. ain't that something? But anyway, it says it agitates the community with ill-founded jealousies and false alarms. They invading us on the border. They doing this to us. False alarms, and it kindles the animosity of one part against the other or against another. A house divided against itself cannot stand. It foments occasionally riot and insurrection. Was George Washington lying? Or did you see now that George Washington knew exactly what he was talking about? And then it says, it opens the door to foreign influence and corruption. Russia, are you listening? Remember that? It opens the door. That's what party, allegiance to party rather than to country does to you. It opens the door to foreign influence and corruption, which finds a facilitated access to the government itself through the channels of party passions. They found out that the NRA wasn't just the NRA, it was the National Russian Association. Russia was pumping money into the elections and interfering in the America's elections. Putin was him and his people. Huh? And when you found out, you didn't even have sense enough to care. Because your school system has been systematically being underfunded And so the people that you have in there teaching your children are not the best that you could have had if you had put an emphasis. You can tell how much emphasis is put on education by how much teachers are paid. Many teachers have to get another job to support themselves. These people are not interested in educating you. They're interested in getting rid of you so that they could fulfill their pipe dream. They haven't forgot I told you, you cannot disbelieve in God and be a patriot. And if you are a patriot and you believe in God, and so you have to reference the scriptures when you doing stuff. And if they had paid attention to the scriptures, they would know that their time to rule is up. So you just living in a pipe dream. You got a pipe dream of you gonna rule the world when you get rid of America. You ain't gonna rule the world by getting rid of the United States. You signing your own death certificate. Poor pitiful thing. So it says it opens the door to foreign influence and corruption, which finds a facilitated access to the government itself through the channels of party passions. Thus, the policy and the will of one country are subjected to the policy and will of another. And Putin stood up and told you that at Helsinki, that he wanted to have normal relationships with America. When did Russia and the United States ever have that kind of relationship where Russia is a dictatorship and the United States is a democracy? When have they ever been in a total agreement and friendship to each other? They were mutual respecters of one another, but they weren't friends. Do you understand? It was all spying on each other, competing with each other. And I'm going to tell you something else. Donald Trump, when he went there, it was an embarrassment in front of the whole world to see an American president kowtowing to Little Russia. Even referred questions to the Russian president. When the press would ask him something, he referred to his husband. Boy, that was rich, wasn't it? And when he told people Russia, there was no reason why Russia should have interfered in our election. That's what he stood up there and said. And then when they asked Putin, did he help Donald Trump? He said, yeah, I helped that sycophant. That's what he was saying. He contradicted him right there in front of the whole world. There is an opinion that parties in free countries are useful checks upon the administration of the government and serve to keep alive the spirit of liberty. This, within certain limits, is probably true. And in governments of a monarchical cast, patriotism may look with indulgence, if not with favor, upon the spirit of party. When you got a king over you. It says, but, now here comes the other shoe. But in those of the popular character of democratic republics, in governments purely elective, it is a spirit not to be encouraged. From their natural tendency, it is certain there will always be enough of that spirit for every salutary purpose. It says, and there being constant danger of excess. Not sometimes danger, always constant danger of them going too far with that partisanship. Huh? The effort ought to be by force of public opinion to mitigate and assuage partisanship. A fire not to be quenched, it demands a uniform vigilance. You got to watch parties, man, to prevent it from bursting into a flame, lest instead of warming, it should consume. It's almost too late for that. They done ignored George Washington. And now what he warned them about is consuming their country. It is important likewise that the habits of thinking in a free country should inspire caution in those entrusted with its administration. What did it say? People should fear. If they are your leaders, if they are your the people that you elected, they should fear the voters. Of course, grown folks don't fear children. And an ignorant mind is the mind of a child. And that's what is happening in America right now, the United States. You got grown bodies with the minds of children. You know what the mind of a child is? You can get on him and fuss at him about something, him or her. Then you go and do such and so and such and so and so, and you do such and so, and then they mad now. Did you hear me? And they say, yeah, yes, sir. What did I just say? No, he didn't hear you, because he mad. Therefore, when these people that got all riled up because they lost an election and they wasn't mad because Donald Trump so much wasn't president no more. They was mad because they wanted him to stay in there so that boy, what did he say? I just want to see it glow, dude. Huh? Ain't that what he said when they was getting ready to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer? Just want to see it glow. He don't care nothing about what come after. He just want to burn it down. He just want to get rid of it. Why? Well, he white and ain't got nothing, and it's his fault. And if he can't have nothing in it, what value is it to him? Maybe he can be part of the military people and eat free and drink free, and all he got to do is threaten people and keep them in line. Do you understand? So he want to become a henchman for Donald Trump. To show you how stupid they are, do you honestly think that American people are so cowardly that they would let somebody like you intimidate them to the point that they knuckle under you? Man. Anyway, it says that it is important likewise that the habits of thinking in a free country, let me make sure I ain't going past the time here. I do want you to hear this man. but I wanted you to hear what George Washington said. He says that that the habits of thinking in a free country should inspire caution in those entrusted with its administration to confine themselves within their respective constitutional spheres, avoiding in the exercise of the powers of one department to encroach upon another. The spirit of encroachment tends to consolidate the powers of all the departments in one, and thus to create, whatever the form of government, a real tyranny. He said despotism, a real tyranny. He says, a just estimate of that love of power and proneness to abuse it, which predominates in the human heart, is sufficient to satisfy us of the truth of this position. The necessity of reciprocal checks in the exercise of political power. Reciprocal checks means you got to have someone that, while you exercising power, there's another authority that can, can stop your roll. You understand? To keep you from overreaching. And so then it says, there should be a reciprocal checks in the exercise of political power by dividing and distributing it into different depositories and constituting each the guardian of the public good, the public weal, against invasions by the others, has been evinced by experiments, ancient and modern. The evidence of it is been seen, that when you put a check on people that have power, they tend to exercise it with more caution rather than giving them total authority over everything. Then it says, some of them in our country and under our own eyes, it says, to preserve them must be as necessary as to institute them. If, in the opinion of the people, the distribution or modification of the constitutional powers be in any particular wrong, let it be corrected by an amendment in the way which the Constitution designates. But let there be no change by usurpation. In other words, deceit and misrepresentation. You know, misrepresenting something that the Constitution say, thereby just ignoring it. For when you misrepresent something that the Constitution said, and people let you get away with it, then you have just decided to push the Constitution aside. If the Constitution said this is black, and you say, well, this is white, and so, and this, what it really meant was this is white. And well, no, that's not what it said. Do you understand? And it says, but let there be no change by usurpation. For though this, in one instant, may be the instrument of good, it is the customary weapon by which free governments are destroyed. George Washington was a student of history. He says, the precedent must always greatly overbalance in permanent evil any partial or transient benefit which the use can at any time yield up for you. The minute you start allowing people to usurp the authority over the Constitution, you are cruising for your destruction. Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. And in vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism who would labor to undermine and subvert these great pillars of human happiness, religion and morality. I don't care how much he walk up and hug the flag and people clap for him and all that old kind of thing. That act within itself was proof that he's not a patriot. If he had ever went into the military, he would have known that you don't hug the flag. The flag wasn't made to hug. It was made to wave. Because if you hug it, you are encasing it. And then it is not to be saluted. We salute all officers and standards that are not cased. But anyway, it says, in vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism who would labor to subvert these great pillars of human happiness, these firmest props of the duties of both men and citizens. The mere politician equally with the prophet, with the pious man, ought to respect and to cherish them. You notice how he put that, the mere politician, along with the pious man. He saw himself lesser than a prophet, than a man of God. That's why he said a mere politician. Do you understand? Okay. Says that shows a belief in God right there. That's why he said in the Pledge of Allegiance, he said one nation under God. Huh? Yeah. He says, a volume could not trace all of their connections with private and public felicity, or in other words, happiness. Let it simply be asked, where is the security for property, for reputation, for life, if the sense of religious obligation deserts the oaths which are the instruments of investigation in courts of justice? Now let's listen to this man, Mr. Boyer Bowers. Let's listen to him now as he explained to them that that oath that he took meant something to him. Do you understand? It wouldn't have meant nothing to him if he didn't believe in God. Now I'll play it now. Let's see here.
Wanted Donald Trump to win a second term in office? Please.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And is it your understanding that President Biden was the winner of the popular vote implementation manager for the 2020?
Just a moment. If I have to, I'll just go back and play it.
Georgia, responsible for leading the Secretary of State's response to the COVID pandemic and rolling out modernized voting equipment. I will swear in our witnesses. Witnesses, will you please stand? Raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm on the penalty of perjury?
Just a moment, y'all.
About to give is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God. Thank you. Please be seated.
I'll cut that off and go straight to it here.
Running through this scheme was a big lie, and the election was plagued with
testimony shows is that also right after after that.
You said that was at
President.
125.
And so for me, through the committee, to come to, yes, sir, thank you.
System held, but system held ours.
Rasmusperger, I now welcome our first panel of witnesses. We're joined today by distinguished Rusty Bowers, who's a Republican Speaker of the Arizona House of Representatives. Mr. Bauer was first elected to the state legislature in 1993 and has served as Speaker since 2019. Welcome, Speaker Bowers. Brad Rasmusperger is the 29th Secretary of State of Georgia, serving in this role since 2019. As an elected official and a Republican, Secretary Rasmusperger is responsible for supervising elections in Georgia and maintaining the state's public records. Welcome, Mr. Secretary. Gabriel Sterling is the Chief Operating Officer in the Georgia Secretary of State's office. Mr. Sterling was the statewide voting systems implementation manager for the 2020 election in Georgia, responsible for leading the Secretary of State's response to the COVID pandemic and rolling out modernized voting equipment. I will swear in our witnesses. The witnesses will please stand and raise their right hand. Do you swear or affirm on the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Please be seated. Let the record reflect that the witnesses answered in the affirmative. Speaker Bowers, thank you for being with us today. You're the Speaker of the Arizona House and a self-described conservative Republican. You campaigned for President Trump and with him during the 2020 election. Is it fair to say that you wanted Donald Trump to win a second term in office? Please.
Yes, sir, thank you.
And is it your understanding that President Biden was the winner of the popular vote in Arizona in 2020?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Pursuant to Section 5C8 of House Resolution 503, the chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Schiff, for questions.
Speaker Bowers, thank you for being with us today. Before we begin with the questions that I had prepared for you, I wanted to ask you about a statement that former President Trump issued, which I received just prior to the hearing. Have you had a chance to review that statement?
My counsel called from Arizona and read it to me. Yes, sir.
In that statement, I won't read it in its entirety. Former President Trump begins by calling you a rhino, Republican in name only. He then references a conversation in November 2020 in which he claims that you told him that the election was rigged and that he had won Arizona. To quote the former president, during the conversation, he told me the election was rigged and that I won Arizona, unquote. Did you have such a conversation with the president?
I did have a conversation with the president. That certainly isn't it, but there were parts of it that are true, but there are parts that are not, sir.
And the part that I read you, is that false?
Anywhere, anyone, anytime has said that I said the election was rigged, that would not be true.
And when the former president in his statement today claimed that you told him that he won Arizona, is that also false?
That is also false.
Mr. Bowers, I understand that after the election, and I don't know whether this is the conversation the former president is referring to, but after the election you received a phone call from President Trump and Rudy Giuliani in which they discussed the result of the presidential election in Arizona. If you would, tell us about that call and whether the former president or Mr. Giuliani raised allegations of election fraud.
Thank you. My wife and I had returned from attending our church meetings. It was on a Sunday, and we were still in the driveway, and I had received a call from a colleague telling me that the White House was trying to get in touch with her and that she said, please, if you get a call, let's try to take this together. Immediately, I saw that the White House on my Bluetooth was calling, and I took the call and was asked by I would presume the operator at the White House if I would hold for the president, which I did, and Mr. Giuliani came on first, and niceties, then Mr. Trump, President Trump, then President Trump came on, and we initiated a conversation.
And during that conversation, did you ask Mr. Giuliani for proof of these allegations of fraud that he was making?
On multiple occasions, yes.
And when you asked him for evidence of this fraud, what did he say?
He said that they did have proof, and I asked him, do you have names? For example, we have 200,000 illegal immigrants, some large number, 5,000 or 6,000 dead people, etc. And I said, do you have their names? Yes. Will you give them to me? Yes. The president interrupted and said, give the man what he needs, Rudy. He said, I will. And that happened on at least 2 occasions, that interchange in the conversation.
So Mr. Giuliani was claiming in the call that there were hundreds of thousands of undocumented people and thousands of dead people who had purportedly voted in the election?
Yes.
And you asked him for evidence of that?
I did.
And did you ever receive from him that evidence either during the call, after the call, or to this day?
Never.
What was the ask during this call? He was making these allegations of fraud, but he had something or a couple things that they wanted you to do. What were those?
The ones I remember were first that we would hold, that I would allow an official committee at the Capitol so that they could hear this evidence and that we could take action thereafter. And I refused. I said, up to that time, the circus, I called it the circus, had been brewing with lots of demonstrations, both at the counting center, at the Capitol, and other places. And I didn't want to have that in the House. I did not feel that the evidence, granted in its absence, merited a hearing, and I didn't want to be used as a pawn if there was some other need that the committee hearing would fulfill. So that was the first ask, that we hold an official committee hearing.
And what was his second ask?
I said, to what end? To what end the hearing? He said, well, we have heard by an official high-up in the Republican legislature that there is a legal theory or a legal ability in Arizona that you can remove the electors of President Biden and replace them. And we would like to have the legitimate opportunity through the committee to come to that end and remove that. And I said, that's something that's totally new to me. I've never heard of any such thing. And he pressed that point. And I said, look, you are asking me to do something that is counter to my oath when I swore to the Constitution to uphold it. And I also swore to the Constitution and the laws of the state of Arizona. And this is totally foreign as an idea or a theory to me, and I would never do anything of such magnitude without deep consultation with qualified attorneys. And I said, I've got some good attorneys, and I'm going to give you their names. But you're asking me to do something against my oath, and I will not break my oath. And I think that was up to that point.
During the conversation, and you heard, I think, when we played a snippet of Mr. Giuliani calling other state legislators and saying that he was calling us essentially a fellow Republican, did he make a similar appeal to you or bring up the fact that you shared a similar party?
Whether it was in that call or in a later meeting, he did bring that up more than once.
And how would he bring that up?
He would say, aren't we all Republicans here? I would think we would get a better reception. I mean, I would think you would listen a little more open to my suggestions, that we're all Republicans.
And this evidence that you asked him for that would justify this extraordinary step, I think you said they never produced. Why did you feel, either in the absence of that evidence or with it, what they were asking you to do would violate your oath to the Constitution?
First of all, when the people, and in Arizona, I believe some 40 plus years earlier, the legislature had established the manner of electing our officials, or the electors for the presidential race. Once it was given to the people, as in Bush v. Gore, illustrated by the Supreme Court, it becomes a fundamental right of the people. So as far as I was concerned, for someone to ask me in the, I would call it a paucity, there was no evidence being presented of any strength. Evidence can be hearsay evidence, it's still evidence, but it's still hearsay. But strong judicial quality evidence, anything that would say to me, you have a doubt, deny your oath. I will not do that. And on more than one occasion throughout all this, that has been brought up, and it is a tenet of my faith that the Constitution is divinely inspired of my most basic foundational beliefs. And so for me to do that because somebody just asked me to is foreign to my very being. I will not do it.
I want to say, just a moment. When he said that, I told you before that, when you read the Constitution, if you believe in God, you have to see the hand of God helping them put that together. This country didn't even exist when God told Abraham that his seed was going to be a stranger in a land that wasn't theirs and serve them for 400 years. The nation that we was going to serve didn't even yet exist. Do you understand? Now, you look at the book of Romans, the 13th chapter. I think it's chapter 13. So don't misunderstand what the man was saying. He says, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. For there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained by God. You don't gain dominion over God's creation and God don't give it to you. Do you understand? Okay. Look at the history of how this country came into existence. And look what God told Abraham. He said, and also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge. He didn't say, I'm going to let you pay them back. He said, no, I will judge them. Which means he's always had his eyes on them in the first place. Huh? And make no mistake, he had his eyes on us too. That's why he said to Moses, he said, I will raise up among them one like you, Moses. And they shall no longer say, the Lord liveth that brought them up out of Egypt, but out of the north country. I didn't hear you. You see? So, that man was interested in keeping his oath. And he told Donald Trump he was not going to break his oath for him. He wasn't going to break the law for him. Huh? That's the kind of people that you put in the Senate, in the House, in the state as well as in the United States, if you want to be well represented and when you have men of conscience in there. He ain't no perfect man, but he has a conscience and he fears God. And a man that fears God, he careful how he treats other people. Do you understand? Okay. So let's listen to him some more, because he gonna come back and answer answer another.
During that conversation, Speaker Bowers, did you ask him if what he was proposing had ever been done before?
I did.
And what did he say?
He said, well, I'm not familiar with Arizona law or any other laws, but I don't think so. And that also was brought up in other conversations, both with him and with John Eastman and others.
Speaker Bowers, I understand that a week after that call, Mr. Giuliani appeared with others associated with President Trump's effort to overturn the result of the election at a purported legislative hearing in a hotel ballroom in Phoenix. Was this an official hearing of the state legislature?
It was not.
And why was it not a real or official hearing of the legislature?
A legislator can hold a group meeting. You can call it a hearing. But when they asked me to have an official hearing, we establish it by protocols, public notice, etc. It's typically held at the Capitol, but it doesn't need to be. We can authorize a hearing off campus. And in this case, I had been asked on several occasions to allow a hearing. I had denied it, but said, you're free to hold a meeting, any meeting you want, to the person who asked, and which he ultimately did. I think he was a little frustrated, but he ultimately did.
This meeting was the same day, I believe, that the governor of Arizona, Doug Ducey, certified Biden as the winner of the presidential election in Arizona. Did you meet with Mr. Giuliani and his associates while they were in Phoenix sometime after that purported legislative hearing at the hotel?
Yes, I did, sir.
And at that meeting, did Mr. Giuliani raise any specific allegations of election fraud again?
His initial comments were, again, the litany of groups of illegal individuals or people deceased, etc. And he had brought that up, and I wasn't alone in that meeting. There were others, and other members of the Senate aggressively questioned him, and then I proceeded to question him on the proof that he was going to bring me, etc. But he did bring those up, yes.
And these other legislators were also Republican members of the Senate?
They were, yes, sir.
And did they also press him for proof of these allegations?
They pressed him very strongly. Two of them especially, very strongly.
And at some point, did Mr. Giuliani ask one of the other attorneys on his team to help him out with the evidence?
He did. He asked Jenna Ellis, who was sitting to his right. One thing was that it was more to the point of, was there sufficient evidence or action that we could justify the recalling of the electors? But at that part of the conversation, I know he referred to someone else. But he did ask, do we have the proof, to Jenna, Miss Ellis? And she said, yes. And I said, I want the names. Do you have the names? Yes. Do you have how they voted? We have all the information. I said, can you get to me that information? Did you bring it with you? She said, no. Both Mr. Giuliani asked her and I asked generally if they'd brought it with them. She said, no, it's not with me, but we can get it to you. And I said, then you didn't bring me the evidence, which was repeated in different iterations for some period of time.
At some point, did one of them make a comment that they didn't have evidence, but they had a lot of theories?
That was Mr. Giuliani.
And what exactly did he say, and how did that come up?
My recollection, he said, we've got lots of theories, we just don't have the evidence. And I don't know if that was a gaffe, or maybe he didn't think through what he said, but both myself and others in my group, the three in my group and my council, both remembered that specifically, and afterwards we kind of laughed about it.
And getting back to the ask in that phone call that preceded this meeting, he wanted you to have the legislature dismiss the Biden electors and replace them with Trump electors on the basis of these theories of fraud?
He did not say it in those exact words, but he did say that Arizona law, according to what he understood, that would be allowed, and that we needed to come into session to take care of that, which initiated a discussion about, again, what I can legally and not legally do, and I can't go into session in Arizona unilaterally or on my sole prerogative.
In this meeting or at any other later time, did anyone provide you with evidence of election fraud sufficient to affect the outcome of the presidential election in Arizona?
No one provided me ever such evidence.
The Select Committee has uncovered evidence in the course of our investigation that had stopped the steal protests at state capitals across the country. There were individuals with ties to the groups or parties involved in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. One of those incursions took place in the Arizona House of Representatives building, as you can see in this footage. This is previously undisclosed video of protesters illegally entering and refusing to leave the building. One of the individuals prominently shown in this video is Jacob Chansley. Perhaps better known as the QAnon shaman, this rioter entered the Capitol on January 6th, was photographed leaving a threatening note on the dais in the U.S. Senate chamber, and was ultimately sentenced to 41 months in prison after pleading guilty to obstruction of an official proceeding. Other protesters who occupied the Arizona House of Representatives building included Proud Boys, while men armed with rifles stood just outside the entrance. I understand these protesters were calling for you by name, Speaker Bowers. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Speaker Bowers, did the President call you again later in December?
He did, sir.
Did you tell the President in that second call that you supported him, that you voted for him, but that you were not going to do anything illegal for him?
I did, sir.
Nevertheless, his lawyer, John Eastman, called you some days later, on June 4th, 2021. And he did have a very specific ask that would have required you to do just what you had already told the President you wouldn't do, something that would violate your oath. Is that correct?
That's correct. It wasn't just me. I had my counsel and others on the call.
And what did Dr. Eastman want you to do?
That we would, in fact, take a vote to overthrow, or I shouldn't say overthrow, that we would decertify the electors, and that because we had plenary authority to do so. And he cited Article 2, Section 1, I think it's Clause 2, and said that in his opinion that gave us the authority. If there was, I don't recall him saying sufficient evidence, but there was some call or some strong reason to do so that we, or justification to do so that we could do that. And that he was asking that his suggestion was that we would do it. And I said, again, I took an oath. For me to take that, to do what you do, would be counter to my oath. I don't recall if it was in that conversation, clearly, that we talked more about the oath, but I said, what would you have me do? And he said, just do it and let the court sort it out. And I said, you're asking me to do something that's never been done in history, the history of the United States, and I'm going to put my state through that without sufficient proof, and that's going to be good enough with me? That I would put us through that, my state, that I swore to uphold both in Constitution and in law? No, sir. He said, well, that's my suggestion would be just do it and let the courts figure it all out. And he didn't use that exact phrase, but that was what his meaning was, and I declined, and I believe that was close to the end of our phone call.
And again, this took place after you had recently spoken with President Trump and told him that you wouldn't do anything illegal for him. Is that right?
It wasn't days after. Obviously, it was days after, but a few days had gone by.
But you had told President Trump you would not do anything illegal for him.
I did, both times.
And you told Dr. Eastman that you did not believe there was legal support to justify what he was asking, but he still wanted you to do it and effectively let the courts work it out?
I've been warned, don't say things you think, maybe he said, but I do remember him saying that the authority of the legislature was plenary and that you can do it. I said, then you should know that I can't even call the legislature into session without a 2/3 majority vote. We're only 30 plus 1. There's no way that could happen.
But in your view, what he was asking you to do would have violated your oath to the Constitution, both the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the state of Arizona?
Yes, sir.
Did you also receive a call from U.S. Representative Andy Biggs of Arizona on the morning of January 6th?
I did.
And what did Mr. Biggs ask you to do?
I believe that was the day that the vote was occurring to each state to have certification, or to declare the certification of the electors. And he asked if I would sign on both to a letter that had been sent from my state and or that I would support the decertification of the electors, and I said I would not.
Mr. Speaker, on December 4th, 2020, shortly after your meeting with Rudy Giuliani and other allies of President Trump, you released a statement publicly addressing, quote, calls for the legislature to overturn the 2020 certified election results. The statement is very straightforward in explaining the, quote, breathtaking request, unquote, made by representatives of President Trump. Quote, that the Arizona legislature overturn the certified results of last month's election and deliver the state's electoral college votes to President Trump, unquote. Why did you believe, as you wrote in this statement, that the rule of law forbid you from doing what President Trump and his allies wanted you to do?
Representative, I'm sorry, I should be saying, Mr. Chairman, Representative Schiff, there's two sides to the answer. One is, what am I allowed to do, and what am I forbidden to do? We have no legal pathway, both in state law nor to my knowledge in federal law, for us to execute such a request. And I am not allowed to walk or act beyond my authority. If I'm not specifically authorized as a legislator, as a legislature, then I cannot act to the point of calling us into session. Some say that just a few legislators have plenary authority, and that is part of all of this discussion, I'll call it. But so to not have authority and be forbidden to act beyond my authority on both counts, I am not authorized to take such action, and that would deny my oath.
In your statement, you included excerpts from President Ronald Reagan's inaugural address in 1981. The newly inaugurated president told the country, quote, "The orderly transfer of authority is called for in the Constitution, routinely takes place as it has for almost 2 centuries, and few of us stop to think how unique we really are. In the eyes of many in the world, this every 4-year ceremony we accept as normal is nothing less than a miracle." Tell us, if you would, Mr. Speaker, why did you include President Reagan's words in your public statement?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Schiff, because I have a lot of admiration for Ronald Reagan. I've had the opportunity of going to his home with one other person and walking through, and I have a lot of admiration for him. When he pointed out, which is, I have lived in other country for a period of time and have visited a few countries, and during election times, the fact that we allow an election, support an election, and stand behind the election, even in the past when there have been serious questions about the election, and then move on without disturbance and with acceptance that we choose to follow the outcome of the will of the people. That will, it means a lot to me, and I know it meant a lot to him, and so we included that.
Thank you, Speaker Bowers. I now want to look even more deeply at the fake elector scheme. Every 4 years, citizens from all over the United States go to the polls to elect their president. Under our Constitution, when we cast our votes for president, we are actually voting to send electors pledged to our preferred candidate to the Electoral College. In December, the electors in each state meet, cast their votes, and send those votes to Washington. There is only one legitimate slate of electors from each state. On the 6th day of January, Congress meets in a joint session to count those votes, and the winner of the Electoral College vote becomes the president. In this next segment, you'll hear how President Trump and his campaign were directly involved in advancing and coordinating the plot to replace legitimate Biden electors with fake electors not chosen by the voters. You'll hear how this campaign convinced these fake electors to cast and submit their votes through fake certificates, telling them that their votes would only be used in the event that President Trump won his legal challenges. Yet when the president lost those legal challenges, when courts rejected them as frivolous and without merit, the fake elector scheme continued. At this point, President Trump's own lawyers, so-called Team Normal, walked away rather than participate in the plan. And his own White House counsel's office said that the plan was not legally sound. Let's play the following video produced by the Select Committee.
My name is Casey Lucier. I'm an investigative counsel for the House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol. On November 18th, a lawyer working with the Trump campaign named Kenneth Cheeseborough wrote a memo arguing that the Trump campaign should organize its own electors in the swing states that President Trump had lost. The Select Committee received testimony that those close to President Trump began planning to organize fake electors for Trump in states that Biden won in the weeks after the election.
Who do you remember being involved in those early discussions around the Thanksgiving time regarding having alternate electors meet?
Mr. Giuliani, several of Mr. Giuliani's associates, Mr. Meadows, members of Congress, although it's difficult to distinguish if the members I'm thinking of were involved during Thanksgiving or if they're involved as we progress through December.
At the President's direct request, the RNC assisted the campaign in coordinating this effort.
What did the President say when he called you?
Essentially, he turned the call over to Mr. Eastman, who then proceeded to talk about the importance of the RNC helping the campaign gather these contingent electors in case any of the legal challenges that were ongoing changed the result of any of the dates. I think more just helping them reach out and assemble them. But my understanding is the campaign did take the lead, and we just were helping them in that role.
As President Trump and his supporters continued to lose lawsuits, some campaign lawyers became convinced that convening electors in states that Trump lost was no longer appropriate.
I just remember I either replied or called somebody saying, unless we have litigation pending that's like in these states, like I don't think this is appropriate, or this isn't the right thing to do. I don't remember how I phrased it, but I got into a little bit of a back and forth, and I think it was with Ken Cheeseborough, where I said, all right, you just get after it. Like I'm out.
At that point, I had Josh Finley email Mr. Chesbrough politely to say, this is your task. You are responsible for the Electoral College issues moving forward. And this was my way of taking that responsibility to zero.
The committee learned the White House counsel's office also thought the plan was potentially illegal.
And so to be clear, did you hear the White House counsel's office say that this plan to have alternate electors meet and cast votes for Donald Trump in states that he had lost was not legally sound?
Yes, sir.
And who was present for that meeting that you remember?
It was in our office. It was Mr. Meadows, Mr. Giuliani, and a few of Mr. Giuliani's associates.
The Select Committee interviewed several of the individual fake electors, as well as Trump campaign staff who helped organize the effort.
We were just, kind of useful idiots or rubes at that point. A strong part of me really feels that it's just kind of as the road continued and as it was failure, that got formulated as what do we have on the table? Let's just do it.
And now, after what we've told you today about the Select Committee's investigation about the conclusion of the professional lawyers on the campaign staff, Justice Clark, Matt Morgan, and Josh Finley, about their unwillingness to participate in the convening of these electors, how does that contribute to your understanding of these issues?
I'm angry. Because I think in a sense, no one really cared if people were potentially putting themselves in jeopardy.
Would you have not wanted to participate in this any further as well?
I absolutely would not have. Had I known that the three main lawyers for the campaign that I've spoken to in the past and were leading up were not on board.
I was told that these would only count if a court ruled in our favor. So that would have been using our electors, it would have been using our electors in ways that we weren't told about, and we wouldn't have supported.
Documents obtained by the Select Committee indicate that instructions were given to the electors in several states that they needed to cast their ballots in complete secrecy. Because this scheme involved fake electors, those participating in certain states had no way to comply with state election laws, like where the electors were supposed to meet. One group of fake electors even considered hiding overnight to ensure that they could access the state capitol, as required in Michigan.
Did Mr. Norton say who he was working with at all on this effort to have electors meet?
He said he was working with the president's campaign. he told me that the Michigan Republican electors were planning to meet in the Capitol and hide overnight so that they could fulfill the role of casting their vote in per law in the Michigan chambers. And I told him in no uncertain terms that that was insane and inappropriate.
In one state, the fake electors even asked for a promise that the campaign would pay their legal fees if they got sued or charged with a crime. Ultimately, fake electors did meet on December 14th, 2020 in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New Mexico, Nevada, and Wisconsin. At the request of the Trump campaign, the electors from these battleground states signed documents falsely asserting that they were the, quote, duly elected electors from their state, and submitted them to the National Archives and to Vice President Pence in his capacity as President of the Senate. Here is what some of the fake elector certificates look like as compared to the real ones. But these ballots had no legal effect. In an email produced to the Select Committee, Dr. Eastman told a Trump campaign representative that it did not matter that the electors had not been approved by a state authority. Quote, the fact that we have multiple slates of electors demonstrates the uncertainty of either. That should be enough. He urged that Pence act boldly and be challenged. Documents produced to the Select Committee show that the Trump campaign took steps to ensure that the physical copies of the fake electors' electoral votes from 2 states were delivered to Washington for January 6th. Text messages exchanged between Republican Party officials in Wisconsin show that on January 4th, the Trump campaign asked for someone to fly their fake electors' documents to Washington. A staffer for Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson texted a staffer for Vice President Pence just minutes before the beginning of the joint session. This staffer stated that Senator Johnson wished to hand-deliver to the Vice President the fake electors' votes from Michigan and Wisconsin. The Vice President's aide unambiguously instructed them not to deliver the fake votes to the Vice President. Even though the fake elector slates were transmitted to Congress and the executive branch, the Vice President held firm in his position that his role was to count lawfully submitted electoral votes.
Joseph R. Biden Jr. of the state of Delaware has received 306 votes. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 232 votes.
Which is what he did when the joint session resumed on January 6th after the attack on the Capitol.
538.
What we just heard in that video was an aide to the White House Chief of Staff telling this committee that the White House counsel's office felt that this fake electors plan was not legally sound. Nevertheless, the Trump campaign went forward with the scheme anyway. Speaker Bowers, were you aware that fake electors had met in Phoenix on December 14th and purported to cast electoral votes for President Trump?
I was not.
When you learned that these electors had met and sent their electoral votes to Washington, what did you think?
Well, I thought of the book, The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight. And I just thought, this is a tragic parody.
Mr. Bowers, I understand that as you flew from Phoenix to Washington yesterday, you reflected upon some passages from a personal journal that you were keeping in December 2020 while all of this was taking place. With your permission, I'm wondering if you would be willing to share one passage in particular with us.
Thank you very much. It is painful to have friends who have been such a help to me turn on me with such rancor. I may, in the eyes of men, not hold correct opinions or act according to their vision or convictions, but I do not take this current situation in a light manner, a fearful manner, or a vengeful manner. I do not want to be a winner by cheating. I will not play with laws I swore allegiance to with any contrived desire towards deflection of my deep foundational desire to follow God's will as I believe he led my conscience to embrace. How else will I ever approach him in the wilderness of life, knowing that I ask this guidance only to show myself a coward in defending the course he let me take. He led me to take.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Those are powerful words. I understand that taking the courageous positions that you did following the 2020 election in defense of the rule of law and protecting the voters of Arizona resulted in you and your family being subjected to protests and terrible threats. Can you tell us how this impacted you and your family?
Well, as others in the videos have mentioned, we received, my secretaries would say, in excess of 20,000 emails and tens of thousands of voicemails and texts, which saturated our offices and we were unable to work, or at least communicate. But at home, up till even recently, it is the new pattern or a pattern in our lives to worry what will happen on Saturdays, because we have various groups come by and they have had video panel trucks with videos of me proclaiming me to be a pedophile and a pervert and a corrupt and politician, and blaring loudspeakers in my neighborhood and leaving literature both on my property but arguing and threatening with neighbors and with myself. I don't know if I should name groups, but there was one gentleman that had the 3 bars on his chest, and he had a pistol and was threatening my neighbor, not with the pistol, but just vocally. When I saw the gun, I knew I had to get close. And at the same time, on some of these, we had a daughter who was gravely ill, who was upset by what was happening outside. And my wife, that was a valiant person, very, very strong, quiet, very strong woman. So it was disturbing. It was disturbing.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for your service to the state of Arizona and to the country. Mr. Chairman, at this point, I think it'd be appropriate to take a short recess. Accordingly, I reserve the balance of my time.
The chair requests that those in the hearing room.
As I was listening to his testimony, it evoked a feeling of respect and admiration in me for him. The title man cannot be worn by everyone that is in the form that we call man. You know, part of man, part of being a man, is to take responsibility, to shoulder that responsibility that you took, or that you accepted. When you accept responsibility, when you accept the title, you are supposed to be willing to accept the work and everything that goes with that title. You notice he kept coming back to his oath and his word and his respect for the state and the United States Constitution, that he had pledged an oath to uphold both. And as he told that man who was very unworthy of his support, that I voted for you and I campaigned for you, but I will not break the law for you. Do you understand? And even after having told them once, they wasn't satisfied. He had to keep telling them. Do you understand? And that is, that was just a sign to him that the people that he may have had so much respect for had none for him. It's like I tell people all of the time, you know, I mean, when I stood up with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I was young and you know, inexperienced in the faith. But just because I was young and inexperienced in the faith don't mean that unsolicited by you can just come up to me and start, you know, telling me, you know, I went and visited my relatives, and me and my older brother almost got into it because he started saying derogatory things about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which was disrespectful to me, you know, because if you know I'm following this man, that's no reason for you to get up in my face and do that. So we almost came to blows over that. And but the fact of the matter is, you should never, it is unmanly to insult the manhood of another man. Do you understand? When a man shows you that he is a man, for that's not something that people just tell you. I mean, it's evident that you are a male. Generally, it's evident. Do you understand? But manhood is not something that you tell people you are. It's something that by your actions and your deeds you show that you are. Do you understand? And so Mr. Bauer, he had actually showed them that he was a man. He was his own man. You understand? I mean, he took his duty seriously, and he took his word seriously. Then once you find out that you're dealing with a man, it is very disrespectful for you to, it's insulting for you to ask him to do something that a man would not do. Do you understand? So anyway, you live in a world filled with beasts. That's why the scripture says the fool have said in his heart that there is no God. And the fool hastens to the correction of the stocks. Now you know how you have to correct livestock. They have cattle prods and they have things that you correct them with to inflict pain on them. Well, that's what a fool, he hastens to the correction of the stocks. So as some of the youngsters used to say, he cruising for a bruising. You understand? So anyway, you live to see George Washington's words jump off the page. Go and read George Washington's farewell address and learn the lesson that you should honor your father and your mother. It's just like some of the ignorant, they call, I've heard people stand up and say Arabic is our mother tongue. No, Arabic is not our mother tongue. Arabic may have been the mother tongue of some of my ancestors who was brought before we was brought, over here. But now English is my mother tongue. That's the language I think in. I think in English. Do you understand? Now, I would love to learn some other languages. But, right now, English is my mother tongue and original language. Do you understand? So I have a pretty good grasp of it too, and I'm gaining a better grasp of it. So we don't know what mother is. If you thought about what mother was, then you would understand that the language that you think in, the language that you learned from the time you was thinking, that's your mother tongue, your mother language. Do you understand? So we use terminology that we don't know what we are saying many times. So, but anyway, I've kept you long enough. I've overtaxed you, and I'm going to stop right there. But I'm trying to just wake you up. That's all. What is it, son?
Yes, sir. We have a question from Sean Jeek, and he says, "Son of man, who are the others the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was talking about when he said that others are coming to destroy you for not taking heed to what he said?"
Well, in order for you to really accept my answer, you have to remember what he said. He said, "Ain't nobody coming behind me but God. I better tell you that." Now, the scripture says, "Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord." Well, okay. Well, the Lord is God. That's what David told you in Psalms. He's in the 100th Psalms, around the 3rd verse, he said, "Know ye that the Lord, he is God." Okay, so, and even the name Elijah means, Eli means my God, and Jah is Lord. Put the two together, my God is the Lord. That's what that name actually means. But now, if he said that he was the last man to try to pull you out of the power of the white man and put you in the power of divine, he said, "I'm the last one." Okay, the others, they coming to destroy you for not listening to what I'm teaching. Well, he taught you who to expect behind him. He said, "The Lord, God comes behind me." Anybody other than that, they coming to destroy you. That's what he's telling. That's what he's telling you. So all these other people that's teaching besides me, they are destroying you. I'm the only one building up a mind in you. Other people are destroying the mind that you the little truth that you may have had. If you keep listening to them, you won't have that. So, and look what Now tell me something. If what I just said ain't true, how come none of them challenge me? Why all these leaders out here, you got more leaders than you can shake a stick at. The leaders of this people cause them to err. That's what Isaiah said. The Lord therefore shall have no joy in their young men, neither shall he have mercy on their fatherless and widows, for every one is a hypocrite and an evildoer, and every mouth speaks folly. Folly is just another way of saying foolishness. So I say to all of you, if you want to be safe, you get in these classes. Every time I'm in class, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you come to class and let this mind that I'm sharing, let it be in you. And as the book teaches you, it says the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ. You see. And so they are the Christ and I'm their Lord. The messengers of God is the Christ. And I am their Lord. And so they call me their son. So it's up to all of you to either believe or not. That's all you can do. You can't prove I am, and you can't prove I'm not. All you can do is either believe me or not. But I know one thing. I don't know no other man that can stand up for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours and teach and can't nobody argue with him. I don't know nobody but me that can do that. You know somebody? Introduce yourself to me. And let's see how long you last in an argument against me. I told you a long time ago. You misunderstood it because I know you thought I was bragging. But you done seen the greatest basketball players, the greatest baseball players. You done seen the greatest everything. And now you seeing the greatest himself. Jesus told you. You can talk about Jesus was great. No, Jesus said, my Father is greater than I am. And then he told you who the Father is. He said the Father is the Spirit of truth. Jesus had the gospel. Moses had the Torah. Muhammad had the Holy Quran. I got all of it. So, I mean, you still, you know, it's just it. So, any more questions? Well then, okay, then may Allah bless us and keep us safe and in our right minds. And if it pleases Allah, we will go into some more of this Friday. And I will take you into some more understanding of Jesus' teachings and then Muhammad's teachings and Moses and David and Solomon, the teachings of Christ. All of them were anointed. That's what Christ means. It means anointed. So, may Allah bless us and keep us safe and grant us a peaceful and pleasant night's rest and sleep and a happy, peaceful, and pleasant morning's rise. May Allah's Salam Alaikum.